James Reading was the head guy for that. And he had, previous to his being hired by the Kerr-McGee Corporation to be their chief of security, had headed up a special intelligence unit in the Oklahoma City Police Department, which was like their Red Squad that was like, surveilling local political people, ACLU people,
Do you ever like sit back and think about like the ride you've been on, or you still just so in the middle of it you can't?
Just still in the middle of it. You don't have time to, we don't even get to watch the news most of the time while we're making it.
Yeah.
So we just keep on going straight forward.
Yeah. Now, one of the cases you were talking with me right before we were on camera about is the Karen Silkwood case.
Yeah.
Because apparently that's coming up on
the 50th anniversary of her murder on November 13th, 1974. So that ABC and a lot of the other major networks are now gathering around asking questions about it, because we know who murdered her. We tried to get it put into the trial back in 1979. We won the $10.5 million judgment against the Kerr-McGee Corporation, shut down the entire nuclear fuel reprocessing facility there. But they wouldn't do anything about who murdered her, because it was going to unlock the secret that they were smuggling 98% pure bomb-grade plutonium out of the facility to go to Israel to make nuclear weapon for Israel and Iran, as it turns out, under the Shah. So the source of the nuclear materials for both those countries came out of the Kerr-McGee facility.
Whoa. So, and what was Karen's role over there again?
She was a health and safety organizer for the Oil, Chemical, and Atomic Workers Union. She was trying to organize a chapter of the Oil, Chemical, and Atomic Workers at the Kerr-McGee nuclear facility, the reprocessing plant outside of Oklahoma City. And she was trying to organize everybody like during the lunch hours and coffee breaks and stuff. So they assigned her to the midnight shift so that she was only there from midnight until 8 o'clock in the morning, so they could get rid of her. And so that since she was the only one running around in the plant, she kept going around to the offices looking in the files, and she ended up finding a set of files that showed that they were missing over 40 pounds of 98% pure bomb-grade plutonium. And she got on the telephone and called the Oil, Chemical, and Atomic Workers headquarters in Washington, D.C., and told them that she'd found these documents. And unfortunately, her phones were wiretapped by the security department.
Of course they were.
And they realized that she was revealing this, and the New York Times sent a reporter out, David Burnham, to get copies of the documents themselves, and she was murdered on her way to deliver the documents to him. And the documents were all taken out of the car, and we ended up doing the trial that resulted from that, and caught the people who murdered her, and tried to get it put into evidence. But the court ruled that the count one of our complaint filed under the Federal Civil Rights Act for violating her rights to privacy, because they contaminated her home. They broke into her home and put 400,000 disintegrations per minute of radioactive plutonium on the food in her refrigerator.
Who's they?
This is the security department of the Kerr-McGee Corporation. James Reading was the head guy for that. And he had, previous to his being hired by the Kerr-McGee Corporation to be their chief of security, had headed up a special intelligence unit in the Oklahoma City Police Department, which was like their Red Squad that was like, surveilling local political people, ACLU people, NAACP, the National Organization for Women, all the kind of suspects. And that he had headed up that group, and they hired him to be the chief of security for their nuclear reprocessing plant. And he hired that group, the same group that was in the unit, the Special Intelligence Unit. He retained them to do the surveillance on Silkwood. And so they're the ones that wiretapped her phone. They're the ones that he gave lot number 29 to contaminate her home. And they're the ones that chased her down on the highway that night and rammed her car and ran her into the concrete culvert and killed her.
They tried to say at the beginning that was just a car crash.
Yeah, right.
Which
right.
Obviously it wasn't.
Yeah, it wasn't.
And then when did you, so that's like 1974?
74, November 13th, 74.
Okay. So when did you learn about the case and get involved with it?
Well, I saw the report. Shoemaker, ABC did a special bulletin about the fact that she'd been killed. It was so incredibly suspicious what had happened to her. I saw the bulletin come in. I was out actually at Wounded Knee at the time, I was legal counsel for ACLU during the occupation earlier in '73. So I was out there doing mop up in 1974, and I saw the bulletin come in on the television, and I was with Russell Means and Dennis Banks and the guys, and I was saying, "Holy shit!" I said, "Look, somebody's got their ass in a ringer on that one. They're not going to get away with that." Little did I know that I was going to end up being the one that ran the case. So we got brought in very soon after that. The National Organization for Women had been organizing to try to get women to be much more active in the male-dominated unions. And Karen Silkwood had been a very active member of that oil, chemical, and atomic worker organizing operation. So when she ended up getting murdered, and nobody was going to do anything about it. The local police weren't going to do anything about it. The FBI wouldn't do anything about it. So the National Organization for Women started a major campaign around the country to mobilize people to come forward. And they reached out to me. I was chief counsel at the United States Jesuit headquarters in Washington, D.C., in their national policy office. We had there the social ministry office, and I had done a number of big trials by that time, so they knew about me. So they contacted me to see if I would be willing to run the investigation in the litigation, which I did.
You were also still young at this point, like as far as like being an attorney who hadn't been around for like 40 years or something.
Right.
But you're in the middle of all these insanely huge cases like this.
Turned out, yeah. Well, it happened. What happened is in 1968 at Harvard Law School that I had co-founded the Harvard Civil Rights Law Review along with Mark Green out of New York. And that I was in charge of soliciting cases from around the country from different people that had major constitutional questions that they might want us to work on from the law review. And so I ended up representing the NBC television journalists during the April 1968 riots around the assassination of Dr. Martin Luther King.
Oh, yeah.
And bottom line is, we asserted for the first time the right of journalists to protect their confidential news sources against a grand jury up in New Bedford that was trying to get at the sources for the NBC television journalist. Pappas, his name was. And so we asserted the First Amendment right of the journalists to protect their confidential news sources, and it went all the way to the United States Supreme Court. So I had a case that was in the United States Supreme Court, but I was only a second-year law student at Harvard at the time. So I ended up getting recruited by the #1 corporate litigation law firm in the country.
Watching the video, guys, if you haven't already subscribed, please smash that subscribe button and check out this clip's full podcast episode by clicking here or in the description below.